What's up guys, TSJAwesome 628 here, back again with another F1 2020 My Team Career Mode, this time for the fourth episode of the season of the Vietnam Grand Prix, including the pre-season episode. But we're going to get straight into our activity timeline here, and we're going to go for the funded team event home, and we're also going to go for the vehicle PR filming, so that should give us some cash and some good morale for the team. We have an invitational event to complete as well, which we'll do shortly, but first we are going to make one upgrade to the marketing side of things, and we're going to increase positive effects from team activities. So now it is time to get into this invitational event, but I will just do it off camera, I think, so then we'll come back at the end once I've completed it. So yeah, we just get 150,000 cash and 1,000 a claim. So we are yet to win the season. We have 2 second places from 2 races so far, and hopefully we can change that coming to this race. Vietnam is not my strongest track, especially last season. I picked up damage and was really struggling, but there was one incident involved which still meant that we could get our first points there. So maybe we can get our first victory of the season here this season. The weather forecast is completely dry all weekend, so that's probably good news for us. I'm not particularly strong in the wet, especially at tracks that I'm weaker at. It just means that the wet just makes it even worse. We are quite a bit ahead of Mercedes still for first in the performance index, with Racing Point still holding on third. We are going to try and extend this gap though, and we are going to try and make an upgrade, and it will probably be for the chassis, because I want to improve the weight reduction, and this will be able to come just in time for the Dutch Grand Prix in a couple of races time. And we're also going to make another upgrade though, and it's going to be on the durability side of things, and we're going to improve our gearbox wear, because durability is actually our weakest point. Going into qualifying now, and onto our first lap. As per usual, it's usually a formality to get through this session now. We've got the quickest car on the field, and it's basically a title fight between us and Mercedes. So if any of us do not make it into Q3, it's a massive shock. But coming around the final corner, it's a 132.6, and as we fast forward to the end of the session, it's enough to put us in P3, and both of the Mercedes are ahead of us, but Daniel Ricciardo's just behind us. As per usual, it's the Alfa Romeos, the Hasses and the Williams that will get knocked out, with the Williams being the slowest in this session, and Kevin Magnussen finishing first of those 3 teams, just ahead of his former teammate Romain Grosjean, and then it's the former teammates of Latifi and Russell in 19th and 20th. So onto Q2 we will go. Our first and only lap in Q2 then. I thought maybe I would have got some damage from that as I slightly hit the wall, but it seems not. Although the car did feel slightly understeery into turn 1 and turn 2. But as we come around the final corner, it's a 32.3, so that currently puts us first, and by the end of the session we stay first, and it's just ahead of our teammate Daniel Ricciardo, who is in second, and then Lewis Hamilton is third, and Bottas down in 8th, so not a great lap from him, but enough to see him through. It's both AlphaTauris of Fiat and Gasly, both Renaults of Perez and Ocon, and Alex Albon and Lando Norris that get knocked out in Q2. So both Racing Points, both Ferraris, both Mercs, both of our cars, plus Verstappen and Sainz that make it through to Q3. Onto our first lap in Q3 then, and we are just going to try and do as well as possible. I do not like this first section of Vietnam. I always think the car is very understeery through it. once you got through it, it's a decent bit to drive. But that first section is sometimes really annoying. But our first lap, not even our best lap of the weekend so far, it's a 1:32.5, which puts us just below Daniel Ricciardo. And as we come out for our second lap, I realised that we do not have enough time to set said second lap, and a misjudgment on my part means we will start the race in P3, and we did not get a second crack at it.
With qualifying finished, it's time to remind ourselves of our top three: Ricciardo, Hamilton and Thomas. Well, that wraps up qualifying, but don't worry, we'll be back tomorrow as we head into the Grand Prix.
I think even if we had managed to get the lap in, we would have only been able to get P2 really. I don't think anyone was matching Ricciardo in that session. Got pole by 5/10. We just about split the Mercs, all about 5/10 behind. And then Sebastian Vettel was a second behind, just pivoting Max Verstappen, who split the Ferraris with Leclerc in 7th. The Racing Points had a disappointing session in 8th and 10th, considering they've got the third quickest car.
Let's have yours. You lost to your teammate today. Was it just not your day?
I wouldn't say it wasn't our day. I guess it's just my misjudgment, but they got everything out of the car that they needed to.
Were you struggling for grip?
I did scrape the wall a few times. I did think I had a bit of damage. There was quite a bit of understeer, so I wasn't really sure why the car had so much understeer.
We begin. Let's take a quick look at the grid lineup for today's race. Daniel Ricciardo has a clear view ahead from pole position, and it's Lewis Hamilton alongside. As we continue through the rest of the grid today, we have Thomas, Bottas, Sebastian Vettel and Verstappen, Leclerc, Stroll, Sainz and Antonio Giovinazzi, Gasly, Perez, Alexander Albon and Norris, Ocon, Fiat, Romain Grosjean and Nicholas Latifi, Russell, De Vries, Aitken and Kevin Magnussen fills the last spot on the grid.
So, looking at the race strategy here, and it seems pretty even between the one stop and the two stop. But I remember last season we went for this one stop, and the tyre wear was just terrible. So I'm probably going to make a last minute decision, despite the team wanting us to go on to the one stop, and instead go on to the two stop. And hopefully that will do us enough to have a good chance in this race, as we still are starting P3. We're not really starting that far down, despite failing to set a second lap in Q3. But it's 5 red lights, and it's lights out and away we go, and Hamilton gets a good reaction to the lights, and he's immediately jumped Ricciardo off the line. And we're going to also have a look down the inside of Ricciardo, but we're a bit tentative into turn 1 and allow them to go side by side, despite getting a slight wobble, and Bottas is looking just behind us to try and send it down the inside. But we hold on through the first few corners, and we are going to stick in P3 right here. And we hold Bottas off into the chicane and then through the roundabout section. But we do make slight contact with the wall. But again, I'm not sure if we got any damage from it. At the end of lap 1, Hamilton still leads. Ricciardo is within DRS range of him. And we're on board with Pierre Gasly, who is pulling over to the wayside here as he is going to retire. And as we come to the end of lap 2, we set a fastest lap, and we do receive the notification that Pierre Gasly is out of the session. Further on this lap then, and I think this is Lance Stroll going for a move on Sebastian Vettel here, and he's going to overtake the Ferrari, and he's going to move himself up to P5, I believe. So a good start from him. He's gained 3 positions so far, and we're just slowly trying to close in on Ricciardo and Hamilton as we head on to lap 4. And on this straight, next lap, I think Vettel must have some sort of issue, because they're not even going through the roundabout section yet, and Leclerc's already trying to overtake him, because he shouldn't be falling this far back. You see the gap Stroll's already pulled on him, and well, Leclerc is now ahead of Vettel, but as well as this, Verstappen has managed to overtake Vettel, and Albon's going to try and get all of them here, and Albon's going to go around the outside to take P6. Leclerc's currently managing to hold on to P7, and the Renault of Sergio Perez is taking P8, and Verstappen and Vettel are the big losers, are then down to P9 and P10. So 5 different cars going at it on that straight there, and well, the big gainers were Albon, Leclerc and Perez. And talking of Perez, he is now going for a move on Charles Leclerc, and he is going to go around the outside into the hairpin here, which seems to be a good spot so far, as the outside does seem to be the much better line into the hairpin, and he has got the move, and now he is the one up into P7 in this race. And Sebastian Vettel is just falling further and further down here. Carlos Sainz is going to get around his outside into the roundabout section, and now he's going to have to deal with both Giovinazzi and Lando Norris, who are also on his tail, and Giovinazzi manages to overtake Sebastian Vettel, as does Lando Norris, and now Giovinazzi is going to go for the move on Carlos Sainz, and Esteban Ocon is also going to try and look past Sebastian Vettel. Vettel locks up to hold the position, but Sainz cannot keep Giovinazzi behind, and now Lando Norris is going to try and look for a move him in the next lap. But we're still holding P3 down. We can't quite get close enough to Ricciardo for a move, but going through this chicane here, we sense a slight chance here as we get a slightly better drive, and we're going to go up the inside of Ricciardo, and we're going to take P2 from our teammates. I've just had a bit more pace than him. You can see I have the fastest lap next to my name, and now we're going to try and chase down Lewis Hamilton to try and take the lead of this race. Ricciardo does a DRS and he's trying to come back at us, and he's going to go around the outside. Unlike the AI, we're just going to close the door and we're going to hold P2. So good overtake from us, and we're up to P2. Now on board with Esteban Ocon here, who is overtaking Sebastian Vettel, and Danny Kvyat as well, who is just also going to breeze past Sebastian Vettel, and he must have some kind of issue in this race. There's no way he is this slow on merit, considering he qualified P5 and now he's already down to like P14 or something. And on to the next lap, we're on board with Sergio Perez here, and he is just behind Alex Albon and Lance Stroll, and he's going to go for a move on Alex Albon here, round the outside into the hairpin, and he looks to be trying to take P6 here, and he's going to get the better run out the hairpin, and he is ahead of Alex Albon. So good move from Sergio Perez, as our teammate Daniel Ricciardo comes into the pits at the end of lap 7, and we need to try and make sure we do not get undercut by him. But now on board with Lance Stroll, who does make a slight mistake here, and that will allow Perez to try and gain another position here, and he seems to be flying here because he started outside the top 10, and now he is looking to overtake Lance Stroll through the roundabout section. But I think for Stroll it happened at a decent location, because now him and Albon are both going to get DRS on Sergio Perez. So in this battle for what is a net P5 in this race, Alex Albon is going to go round the outside of both Lance Stroll and going to try it on Sergio Perez as well, and he's managed to just about warrant the space. And what a move from Alex Albon here. He's going to try and take the Red Bull seat back in real life, if he can make moves like that in the future, if he's back in a F1 car. But in the game, he seems to be doing decently well with that overtake. Now we're on board with Max Verstappen, who is looking to overtake Charles Leclerc here into the hairpin. You can see the other battle that was going on just in front of them. But Max Verstappen makes it 2 moves from 2 for the Red Bulls around the outside of the hairpin on this lap, and they seem to be trying to get up to battle for that P5. Daniel Ricciardo, obviously we're talking about, went for the undercut, is slightly in traffic, but he's going to go for a move here on Carlos Sainz and around the outside into the hairpin, as is the favourite overtaking spot so far this weekend. He is going to do it, and he is now going to have to try and pull out a great final sector. And now we're on board with us here, and we have a slight wobble into in the roundabout section, and we almost crashed, but we just about kept it out. But for me, that was the end of the tyres. I was like, after that wobble, I did not want to continue on this set of tyres, and I thought the wear was too much. I was going to originally go on to lap 9 and see what I could do, but I decided against that, and we are pitting here for a new set of mediums. Hamilton should come out just in front of us, and indeed he does, but we are not going to come out right in the lead, as there are a few cars that have not stopped yet in this race. But importantly, we are going to come out ahead of our teammate Ricciardo, who is just behind Giovinazzi, who is just behind us, and we have now got Verstappen and Perez just in front of us. So Lewis Hamilton is immediately going to go for a move on Max Verstappen here, straight out the pits with fresh tyres, and he's going to get the move into the roundabout section. He's trying to put cars between us, but we are not going to accept this, so almost straight away on this hairpin we are going to go for a dive down the inside of Max Verstappen, and we are not going to let Hamilton go get away, so a nice move from us down the inside, and we are up to P5 in this race. Now on board with Daniel Ricciardo here, and he is going for a move on Antonio Giovinazzi, as he says, who was just behind, and he almost hits the wall there. It's very fine. Giovinazzi put a big squeeze on him there, but he does manage to get around the outside into the hairpin, and he locks up there, keeps the position. Now going on to lap 10 here, Bottas is finally pitting, and we are just behind Lewis Hamilton. As we head through the hairpin here, he makes a slight mistake, and we're going to take this chance to go for him. And we've got a bit of momentum, and this was a very aggressive move by me on Sergio Perez. I just didn't think I had that much momentum from the cut back on Hamilton, that I went for a move and there was a bit of contact there, and I probably shouldn't have gone for that. But we are now up to P2, so a nice double overtake, and we're using all our overtake, and we're going to try and make it a triple overtake as we go down the inside of Alex Albon, and we managed to take the position, and we lead the Vietnam Grand Prix. So a triple overtake all on that lap, and we suddenly turned it on. Now this is Danny Kvyat trying to overtake Esteban Ocon, just outside the points these two are. I think they're like 12th and 13th, but Danny Kvyat is going to go round the outside into the hairpin, and as what seems to be with most of the AI, he is going to be able to take it on traction, but Ocon is fighting back, and they're going to stay side by side going there to the S section. Ocon has a big lock up, which allows Kvyat to have a slight advantage here, and Kvyat's going to go around the outside and take the racing line in most of these corners, but it's not going to be enough for Esteban Ocon, who is just going to lose out to Danny Kvyat, and then both of these immediately pull into the pits. So that was just a battle for who could get to the pits first. If they were still side by side, that could have been a momentous accident, but luckily Kvyat was just ahead, so they both survived intact. Now we're on board with Lewis Hamilton, who is going to overtake Alex Albon here into the roundabout section, and he's going to be trying to push to get back past us here. And as we're still on board with this lot, because we've still got Perez and Ricciardo and Bottas, who are all also looking to overtake Alex Albon, and Perez is going to pull to the inside this time. So the first time I've seen the AI go for one of those moves here, and he is going to try and go down the inside, but Alex Albon will get the traction, and we'll see whether Alex Albon can keep the position as Perez goes round the outside into the next corner. Alex Albon's driving it back up the inside, but it does seem like Perez has got the position, so a good side-by-side battle there with Ricciardo and Bottas just behind. Now on board with Antonio Giovinazzi here, who has just made a stop and is looking to breeze past Carlos Sainz, and he successfully does that into the hairpin. So he is now going to try and catch up to Max Verstappen, who is just ahead of him on track, and Perez comes into the pits, so he will actually come out between the Red Bull of Verstappen and the Racing Point of Antonio Giovinazzi. Now we're on board with Valtteri Bottas here, and we're going to go through the section here, and he almost lost the back end there, but some quick reactions, and he managed just to hold on to the car and also overtake Alex Albon in the process. Now back on board with of the Racing Point of Antonio Giovinazzi, who is trying to overtake Sergio Perez here, who has just come out of the pits on hard tyres, so he looks to be going to the end, but Antonio Giovinazzi on fresh softs is going to go round the outside and take the position, while the McLarens are going side by side right behind them. And I think that Carlos Sainz is just going to hold on to the position over Lando Norris, so decent defensive move from Sainz, but he just hit the wall there slightly, and I'm not sure if that's given him any damage, but now we can see the gap between Hamilton and Ricciardo now, so I'm not sure if Ricciardo's struggling here because Bottas does seem quicker than him, and Bottas is now going to go for a move on him, and he doesn't even need to really go too much around the outside, but Ricciardo does brake late, but that just means he can't get a good exit, and Bottas will just take the position into P3 and onto the podium. On to the start of lap 14 now, and we're just trying to manage the gap to Lewis Hamilton in second. And Alex Albon stayed out very long on his set of tyres and pit later, and now he's having to try and go for a move on Sergio Perez here. He's been undercut by his teammate Lance Stroll and Perez, but he's going to try and make up one of those positions back now, and going round the outside into the hairpin, he's got a tyre advantage, and he's going to be able to get the position. So this is still the battle for the net P5, with the two McLarens lurking just behind here. And as we head on to lap 15 now, Lance Stroll is still holding down that P5 position, and I believe he's just ahead of Max Verstappen and Charles Leclerc. So Charles Leclerc has just had a really quiet race, but is in the mix of things here. And here we are on board with Alex Albon, who is going to be trying to overtake Antonio Giovinazzi, and he is going to go, well, theoretically the inside line to the hairpin, but he's already done the move before we even get to the hairpin, so he's up to around P7 or 8 now, I think, P8, I think it's P8. Now on board with Charles Leclerc here, who has made his second pit stop, and is now trying to get past Danny Kvyat, who is on the one stop. And we haven't seen too much of Charles so far this race, but he does manage to get through on the AlphaTauri of Danny Kvyat, and he was running in about a net P7 or something at the time, so hopefully for him he'll be able to get another good points finish after his podium in Bahrain. But now I believe we are on board with Sergio Perez here, who is also looking to overtake Antonio Giovinazzi, and he has managed to do it into the hairpin. So despite the tyre advantage for Giovinazzi, Perez managed to overtake him, so maybe Giovinazzi's softs are starting to go off now, and he'll soon be having to pit. And our teammate does come into the pits, and he's going to come out just behind Max Verstappen, as Kevin Magnussen is out of the session. So let's see what happened to him. And just as he's starting to go through the final section, he just has an engine failure and just smashes into the wall, and that must have given him some damage anyway, but his engine is going to just collapse here, and he's going to have to pull to the side and retire from this race. I guess that looks like a slight problem with Vietnam then, if there isn't really a good place for him to pull out to the side and he has to go through that entire S section. But now on board with Daniel Ricciardo, straight out of the pits and straight going past Max Verstappen. So he has managed to take the position up into P4, and now he's just got to hope he can re-undercut Valtteri Bottas and make it an interesting race between them for the final podium position, because that's pretty much his only aim. Despite dominating qualifying yesterday, he hasn't had the pace in this race here. Now on board again with Antonio Giovinazzi. We've seen quite a lot of him in this race, and he is looking to go for a move here on one of the McLarens, so of Carlos Sainz, so they must have undercut him, Carlos Sainz, and now he is going to go and get back past him, and I feel like he's had to make that overtake on 3 separate occasions this week, so I'm not sure if Racing Point's strategy was slightly faltered by the undercut, because he has overtaken Carlos Sainz on 3 separate occasions in this race. But now on board with Charles Leclerc again, and he's on with the second person that's on the one stop in Esteban Ocon, and he's also going to try and overtake him, and he goes to the inside line, which we haven't seen many people do, but he's already ahead going into the brake zones, even though he locks up, there isn't much of an issue there, and he is carrying on going up the order. Now we're back on board with Antonio Giovinazzi, and he's going to go for a move on the AlphaTauri of Danny Kvyat, and into the hairpin he goes, with obviously the McLaren he just overtook just behind him, and he manages to take the position, but it isn't easy, and Kvyat does put up quite a bit of a fight, but Kvyat eventually does have to let the position go, and at the end of lap 20 we are going to pull into the pits. So our final pit stop of this race, on for a set of soft tyres, hope to secure the fastest lap and manage the gap to Hamilton in the final stint. He also follows us into the pits, so there's no overcut. The Mercedes are going to try and get fresh tyres towards the end. Bottas is going to stay out further though. I doubt Mercedes will send him on the one stop just to try and hold me up, but you never know. In real life they may try that, but in the game they'll definitely just hit him on the next lap. Although I'm not exactly sure if I can make up. I guess I can make up 8 seconds easily. I thought it was going to be about 12 seconds, the gap between me and Bottas. Tyres were slightly cold on the exit, I guess, and we went understeering a bit. Now on board with Carlos Sainz here, who is now looking to overtake the AlphaTauri of Danny Kvyat, and actually he's the sole AlphaTauri, isn't he, Danny Kvyat? Whereas Carlos Sainz just manages to breeze past him. I think Kvyat's trying an audacious one stop here, and the second McLaren of Lando Norris should be through pretty shortly. As we head on to lap 22, Bottas does indeed pit, and we do see a couple of purple sectors, but Bottas comes out of the pits just behind Daniel Ricciardo, but Ricciardo's undercut may have worked to gain him track position, but he just doesn't have the outright pace, and Bottas on fresher tyres, on softs compared to mediums as well, just goes around the outside and into the roundabout section. He's already have the move completed, and Ricciardo is already not going to get the traction to be able to challenge back with DRS. So now further back with Lando Norris, and Danny Kvyat is just falling backwards in this race. So a shame for him, but the second McLaren to try and overtake in as many laps, but Lando Norris is slightly cut off there by Danny Kvyat, and is now going to have to try and go for the outside line, but the outside line does work, and he is able to take the position on the Russian. Now we're going to come round the final corner to set a fastest lap here, 1:34.8, So managed to extend the gap to around 8 seconds to Lewis Hamilton as we start lap 24, and many of the battles are starting to dissolve in this race now, and as we head through onto lap 25, we haven't had any battles to go through this race because I think Verstappen's just going to hold on to that P5 position on the 1 stop, whereas Lance Stroll is trying to push back through on the 2 stop. Talking of Lance Stroll, here he is trying to overtake Sergio Perez as his first target on trying to get back through the field. It's after Perez, it is Alex Albon, I believe, and then it's Max Verstappen as the 2 he needs to try and get back to for P5. And meanwhile, his teammate Antonio Giovinazzi is also trying to overtake Esteban Ocon. So it could be double racing point on double Renault move, but Ocon defends quite aggressively and takes the outside line as well, which means that he can then get the better drive, and Antonio Giovinazzi does not find a way through on this lap. But hopefully for him, he'll try again on the next lap because he doesn't want to lose too much touch on the cars ahead. So there's 2 laps to go in this race, and Lance Stroll is already looking to have a move on Alex Albon, and I don't think I've seen an overtake into turn 1 yet this race, but that doesn't mean that Lance Stroll isn't going to go for it, and he overtakes Alex Albon, who must have some horrible tyre wear as it's gone on from a soft to medium 1 stop, and some very, very conservative strategy, but I don't think it's going to fully work out here, as Sergio Perez is also going to look to have a move on him, and Alex Albon's tyres do seem to be dying with about 2 laps to go, and he's lost 2 positions already this lap to Lance Stroll and now to Sergio Perez as well, which put him down to P8, I believe, in this race. And Alex Albon will get DRS here, but it's not going to be enough to re-challenge Perez, I don't think. He's going to go for it though, and he's going to pull to the outside, but using the outside line, he is going to try and re-challenge it. He's going to get a slightly better drive, but his tyres are gone and he just can't get back past around the outside, and it's a shame for him. Now back on board with Antonio Giovinazzi, take 2 of him trying to overtake Esteban Ocon, and again he tries to go for a gap that doesn't exist there, sort of, and has to back out, and this time he still gets a better run though, and he's going to be the one that goes to the outside, and he has fresher tyres, and he will be able to make the move around the outside, unlike what Alex Albon was able to do on Sergio Perez. Now we're going to be able to start the final lap here, and we have 1 battle left to sort out, and that is Charles Leclerc, who is also going to look for a move on, but very, very weak Alex Albon here, whose tyres, as I've mentioned, are just, they're actually gone, unlike what Lewis Hamilton's tyres usually are, and he manages to get through that position. And now we're on board with us again, and we managed to lap Nick de Vries here, so that was very good news. But as we pass the final corner, it's going to be P1, and that is very good news for us. Our first of the season, so we can take the championship lead, I believe, and hopefully this is the start of our championship bid.
A much-deserved victory and a brilliant performance from them all.
So on the podium here, celebrating there, Lewis Hamilton's champagne on us. Sadly, our teammate isn't up on the podium as well. After qualifying yesterday, I was expecting him to be a real challenge this race, and I wasn't expecting to be able to win it, but he just didn't really have any pace in the race. He didn't have a great strategy either.
On the drivers' standings, Thomas takes over the lead of the Drivers' Championship. So, Anthony Davidson, who would you rank as your driver of the day?
Well, you can't fault anything that Sergio Perez did out on the track today. He drove flawlessly, making him an easy pick.
It's time to check out the constructors' standings. The owner-drivers team moved to the top of the table. Meanwhile, Ferrari have improved their position. A strong weekend from them as they fight their way towards the top. Well, Ant, an end to another fantastic weekend of racing. Thanks to everyone who joined us, and we'll see you for the next one.
So we win the Grand Prix ahead of Lewis Hamilton, who only beats Bottas by 2.6 seconds in the end, so Bottas were actually closing him in towards the end. But Ricciardo, as I said, slightly poor race from our teammate there, and then Max Verstappen, P5 on the one stop, which is why he managed to beat Lance Stroll, who did the two stop. So the one stop was generally better, as we saw with Perez, who also finished 7th, except if you did the one stop Alex Albon did from softs to mediums, which didn't exactly work, as he was down in P9, Leclerc in P8 on the two stop. Giovinazzi also did the two stop in P10, and Ocon was 11th on the one stop. We didn't actually see too much from him except when he was being overtaken, so he didn't look like a great pace, but he still finished ahead of both McLarens who did the two stop. And then Kvyat in 14th and Vettel in 15th, who was slowly making his way back up after his mechanical issue, but that didn't really help. And then obviously we had 2 DNFs of Pierre Gasly and Kevin Magnussen. In the championship, we now take the lead over Daniel Ricciardo, so we're 8 points ahead, and Valtteri Bottas is down in 3rd on 40 points, obviously not finishing last race. Lewis Hamilton is then moves up to 4th and 30 points, and Lance Stroll moving up to 5th in the Racing Point. Leclerc moves down 2 positions with an alright race today, and Antonio Giovinazzi is down in 7th, with Lando Norris down in 8th. Max Verstappen moves up to 9th with his first points of the year, and then Gasly moves down to 10th, obviously not finishing. Sergio Perez, with his best result in the Renault team, moves upwards, with Alex Albon moving downwards, despite looking really promising at the stages of this race. And then in the Constructors' Championship, we take the lead from Mercedes. Well, I think we were leading at the start of last race. I think that's wrong. I think we were already leading going into this race, but we increase our lead to 46 points. Racing Point are staying in 3rd. They've done pretty well to cement that position so far this season, with Ferrari moving up to 4th ahead of both McLaren and Red Bull. AlphaTauri and Renault both jump Alfa Romeo, but that can't be right because they both scored last race, so yeah, I'm not sure the up and down arrows are completely accurate, so...
Let's have this. Is there really any competition for you today?
Well, I thought there was going to be competition from my teammate, but that just didn't happen in the end. But yeah, there was never really competition from Mercedes.
Or feeling the pressure?
I'm happy to be here, obviously.
You performed better than last weekend. What changed?
There were just some few tweaks there, mainly to the aerodynamics, but there wasn't many. Well, I wouldn't really say it was a close finish in the end, but yeah, we've got a bit of a rivalry going on with Hamilton, and we are coming out on top in this rivalry. Currently 17-10 up, and that is good news for us. We should be able to cement a finish in the next couple of races. We move up to level 13 as a driver, and the team is very close to level 16 in claim, so hopefully we can achieve that next race as well. In cash bonuses, we failed to complete 100 laps this weekend, but we did manage to qualify in P4. We did a slight damage deduction, so I must have picked up some damage somewhere in qualifying or the race. Not sure exactly when, but well, our cash bonus is exactly 5 million, and I'm going to end the episode there. So I'll see you guys next time for the Chinese Grand Prix.